Right now, this is where I talk. Mitch has to sit there with a goofy look on his face.
I wanted
Hello,
to talk.
boys and girls and men and women and all people that listen to our podcast. It's Mitch, it's Mike, it's the Mitch and Mike voiceover journey. And today on the podcast, we have P.S. Wells, author, also known as PeggySue. So we just cut a little promo video for her about a really exciting project we're helping her with in narrating some of her, or trying to find the right voice to narrate some of her books. And, that was the promo video. This is the interview portion where we really get to know who PeggySue is. So PeggySue, welcome again. Not that we have left yet, but
Yeah. You guys didn't even leave your desks. I had to go
no,
to the water.
We're still sitting. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully those of you who are watching this are listening to it are just continuing in. You listen to the promo and now you want to find out more about PeggySue. So
yeah,
that's what we're here for. So PeggySue, thank you so much for joining us and hanging with us for such a long time tonight.
But I just think of you guys as M&M, which is my favorite writing snack, is the peanut M&M. So yes, just hang out with the M&Ms.
Thank you.
There you
Best
go.
M&Ms out there.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, what do you think?
Oh, I think if it wasn't patented, we could be the official M&M.
There's a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are vitamin M's at my house. Never run out.
Yeah.
Can't. Oh man,
They're dangerous. It's dangerous when they're in my house because it's just I work from home, and so I have a little snack bar that's just about 30 feet away, and when there's M&Ms, every time I walk through, I'm grazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
can't do Cheetos in the house because with Cheetos you sort of wake up from this coma and the bag is empty and my hands all orange.
Hands are all
not just your hands, your cup, your
I'm orange
alarm
on
clock.
Your
Yeah. Wow, this is a fun way to start with making me hungry. I didn't bring any treats this time.
Yeah, for all the good
I know.
stuff.
I feel like there should be something to snack on in my booth right now. Thankfully for all our listeners, we're not going to be munching. So
yeah, you guys munch for us.
But PeggySue, we want to know about you, and so we know one of the fun little bits of trivia that we learned while we were talking before we started recording. PeggySue has written over 100, written or co-written or ghostwritten over 100 books.
Yep.
And that is amazing. So what
Insane.
I want to know is what drove young PeggySue, PeggySue.
Yes.
What drove you to want to start writing? Were you doing this writing creatively in high school, middle school, and then when did that first book actually happen? Just tell us about the early days.
Probably like any other author, I was totally read every book that was in the library. However, I was going to be a modern dancer. And so I went to college to do modern dance. And I was 2 years into it and blew out both my knees. And so the specialist is like, I spent 2 years on crutches and the specialist was you're going to have to find something else to do.
Jeez.
So I'm going through the college catalog, it's like, what else, makes your eyes light up. And journalism looked like it would be fun. So I went into that. I also tried math. And probably the biggest reason why I write is because I stink at math. I mean, really stink at math. So it's like when somebody said their kid had calculus, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Your kid has that disease. Have you checked with the doctor? It's like, no, it's math. So so I don't do math. So writing did it. So I started doing writing in college. And that was back in the day when newspapers wound up on your front porch. And so I did newspaper for years until newspapers stopped being on our front porch. Now I still write for a lot of magazines. And I just started writing. So went from newspaper to articles to books and I've kept at it ever since. I will tell you too, when I write when I write nonfiction, I do my full name, PeggySue Wells. When I write fiction, I do P.S. Wells. Any idea why? It's trivia.
Oh, wow. Should I guess or should I just say?
I feel like I want to guess here. We're going to give the listeners time to guess, and we're also going to guess ourselves.
I'm going to say because they're in two different sections of the bookstore, and they need to be they need to look separate. I don't know.
Good. That's a good answer. And the actual reason is because Same reason J.K. Rowling used J.K. instead of her full name, because she's a female. And that is because the books that I write are high action adventure. And so they are written so that my audience is actually guys. And because women will read anything, guys are more persnickety. Men generally, just the way they're wired, not right or wrong, generally prefer to read a book that has a protagonist that is a fellow. The sidekick
I hate
can
to
be
say
female.
that's me.
It is
Stupid
true,
male
right?
chauvinist
And-
pigs.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't like saying it out loud. I'm going to tell, for whatever reason, I just have trouble putting myself in the mind/body, except for like Hunger Games or something. But
Right.
yeah.
And Hunger Games was written so that it would pull in both. But it's the way the male mind is wired, and I don't have a problem with that. You guys are wired the way you are, and we love that there's men on the planet. We need you. And
Thanks.
so, yeah, so I
wow,
will do
thank you.
P.S. Wells, because when I first started writing the patent, I sent the proposal off to my agent. The agent calls me up and she goes, "This reads like it's written for men." And I'm like, "Well, awesome," because I was writing it for my son and for his best friend. So score, I did it. Great. And she said, "Well, so your son and his friend are in the military?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "So are they going to pick up a book that has a girl's name on it right before they deploy?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, they're not." So she said, "So I need you to come up with a pseudonym at that point." So I hung up the phone. I looked at my daughters. I have 6 daughters. And I'm like, "So who am I in drag?" And they all just went and left the room.
So P.S. Wells is your drag name.
P.S.
Yeah, well, I tried
Wow.
a few others. I literally tried 2 others.
Paul
Like,
Stanley.
Yeah, one
Butch
was so
Wells.
long. Yeah, Joseph Chamberlain Henry, because I love Joseph from the Old and New Testament, Chamberlain because of the Chamberlain guy from the Civil War, and Henry because I wanted to be adopted into Patrick Henry's family, because Patrick Henry had 17 kids, so I could just slide in there
Oh,
and nobody
okay.
would know. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
and I
out.
liked what he stood for. But here's the thing with having that name. First off, it's not honest. Secondly, then you have to have 2 like medias, like 2 social medias. I have to do this
Yeah.
name that's not mine, and then I have to try another one, and it was just like way too complicated.
One's all silhouette photos, like
Right.
as masculine as possible.
One's like
yeah.
hair tied back so you can't tell it's long.
Yeah.
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 We played with that idea, but again, how hard is it for you to keep up with your social media and your newsletters now? It's
Incredibly hard.
we'll
We
try
can
to
tell
do
you
it for
this.
2
Barely
different.
keep up with an email.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do two personas. It was like ridiculous. So then I looked at J.K. Rowling and I'm like, she just did her initials, so I just did my initials, and that worked out okay.
There you
So
go.
that's
Works for
why. Yeah, that's why the fiction are
Because
PS.
men look
they can
for,
pick it up.
don't want to read a novel written by women. Just like I doubt that a woman would look for a romance, like a steamy romance novel written by Bob Smithton.
Yes.
Bob
yes.
Smithian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do,
Perhaps.
I do have a fellow author who is a guy, and he does write romances, and he uses a female name for that exact
I'm
reason.
sure. Yeah. he's
Or
not
at
the
least
only one.
ambiguous, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to take a
Pat.
little step back if I can, because I'm so interested in magazines and in you writing for magazines. Do you do a lot of fiction in there, or do you have like a favorite magazine or article, or I don't know much about that world.
Yeah. I've been writing for newspapers and magazines from the beginning, like way before I had an idea for a book.
Okay.
And so I've written fiction and nonfiction, but mostly it goes for fiction, because if you think about it, most of our news that we get either in magazines or newspapers, and now they're all online, it's mostly nonfiction info. There's a few that are like, like Havoc, that are fiction pieces. But for the most part, it's nonfiction. People are coming to newspapers and magazines because they want to know how to do something. Show me how to, make my kids behave. Show me how to,
Yep.
be healthy. Show me how to look 10 years younger and 5 pounds lighter. So that's what they're looking for. So most of that stuff has been nonfiction.
And is there one that like kind of blew up for you, or your editor was like, "Whoa, my God, I can't believe you wrote this," or anything like that? Anything that comes out, stands out?
I'd say the fact that they let me keep coming back. That's
That's
the
pretty
biggest
nice.
one. Yeah.
That's a good
yeah.
indication that you're doing something right.
Right. So, so there's certain magazines that I've written a lot for, and others, and magazines come and go, so some of the ones that I've written 4 years ago aren't in existence anymore. So, and it's kind of like being a voice actor. Every time you guys do a job, when you're done with the job, you're fired. You're done. You've worked yourself out of a job. And so as a freelancer, same thing for me. I can write an article for somebody, or I'll have a magazine. They'll say, give me 1 a month, or give me 3 at a time, and then we're done, or whatever. But as soon as that article goes in, I've worked myself out of a job. I have to go hunting again unless I can say, let's work for a little while together. And the same thing with a book. Send in a proposal, which is 50 pages. It's a business plan saying how I will sell 5 to 10,000 of that book in the first year. That way, everybody gets to pay their mortgage, everybody at the publishing house and me. And so that's what they're looking for. So I put together this 50-page, thing, and you send it in, and you get a lot of no's, and you get a lot of what I call Indiana no's, which is where nobody ever reaches out to you again. You hear nothing. So I call that the Indiana no.
We get a lot of those. We know all about the Indiana no in the VO world.
We'll call you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, we can skip back forward again. I was just kind of interested in that little tidbit.
So I'm, again, well, I'll skip back too, because I'm fascinated by the fact that you didn't start actually doing any kind of writing journalism or anything until college, and that was your second choice. A lot of times, this is some young kid's dream. Yeah. I want to be a journalist. I want to be a writer. And it's not something that either that or somebody later in life is like, I know that. I know about that. I can write about that. And then they do. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So it's kind of, and I know you're probably not the only author out there, but it's just, it was very interesting to me. I was expecting to hear, well, when I was 8, I used to write these creative stories for my mom, and then I'd stand on the fireplace and I'd read them for my family at Christmas time. But no, it's college. I broke my knees and I had to figure out something else to do. That's a crazy story.
I wanted to be a full-time surfer or a full-time modern dancer is what I wanted to do. So the cool thing that's happened about that, though, is I've done an awful lot of things that are very adventurous. Like I'll travel anywhere and I'll try anything once, sometimes twice if I like it. And I remember somebody asking me, they're like, have you always been that adventurous? And I'm like, honey, anybody who's had 7 kids is adventurous. I mean, it started way back before we did all this. So yeah. And that's actually what propels my writing, because always learning something new, always trying something new. I have more experiences that I can write into the book. So for instance, with Chasing Sunrise, I went to St. Croix, and I went there a couple of times. If you've been to the island of St. Croix, it's amazing, but they have what's called the Wall. And the Wall is a 1-mile drop, just a face that's under the water. And you put on your scuba suit and you dive the wall. Well, who's ever done that? So I wrote it into the book. And so when you go and when you read Chasing Sunrise, it will take you in a scuba suit, and I will take you and you will dive that wall. So I take readers always someplace they've never been before. I give them an experience they've never had before, and I give them information about something historical that they never knew before. So that way I can expand their world. And somebody asked me on an interview the other day, and they said, so what do you need to get ready to write? What do you need? Do you need chocolate? Do you need coffee? Do you need quiet? And I'm like, no, I don't need any of that. And trust me, with 7 kids, I didn't wait for quiet. You wrote because you wrote. I would take my laptop to the horse shows and the soccer games and all that, and I'd write in between waiting for my kids to play. But I can write in the middle of all the noise. So they're like, what do you need? And I thought about it for a while, and I'm like, I have to always be learning something new and experiencing something new. That's what makes me keep writing. And that's why I can write all the magazine articles that I do. I'm always learning something new. I'm always going to a new place. It's like, people need to know about this. So then I write about it. And so then I find a home for it. So that's how that works.
I think the best artists have experience. They've seen something different. They can pull other people's art or experience or knowledge into themselves and have it flow through them. I think the best artists can, if I sit in here too long, I just become, announcer guy. Pretty much, because everything starts sounding the same. Like I got a part-time job, and now I'm like, I'm more free and fun. I remember how to talk to people, not just myself. So I totally get that.
That's what it's like being an actor. I mean, again, it's different parts of the same type of creative process, right? Where you write based on experiences. We create voices or performances or whatever based on what we know, based on what we've experienced. And so most of the time, especially if you're talking about character acting, cartoons and anime and all of that, it's coming from somewhere. It's not just a voice you made up. it's a voice you made up because it reminds you of this, that, or the other thing, and the performance itself may draw on, like if you're a villain, you're drawing on somebody mean in your life or whatever. And so, yeah, it's everything that we do creatively, I think is based on our experiences. You can't write about something you don't know about.
Right. And I found that voice actors, you guys are so up to date on things. You are reading about everything, you're learning about everything, you want to know about everything, and you bring that into the studio with you. And like you always have opinions on things because you know what's going on, and you sort of bring it with you. So
That's so
yeah,
We always have opinions.
It may not be
always
right, but you
injecting
have
your
them.
opinion. Yeah, that's
And
I'm
I
the way
reminded
teach.
about
of-
writers.
I'm reminded of an old movie called "Throw Mama from the Train." Do you remember
Oh
this movie?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
The
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, the main, and I can't even remember who plays the main character, but he's a teacher. He teaches writing in I think it's "Throw Mama from the Train." I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But he teaches writing in like night school, and there's this one lady who writes this story about a submarine, and she's done no research, has never been on a submarine, and she's saying, and the captain talked into the thing and told the people on the other level to do the stuff, and that was basically her story. She read it very dramatically, but it was all just it was so cringily
Bad.
unresearched that it just cracked me up, and so when you talked about. You've talked about not only the experiences, but you mentioned to us before the research that goes into thing. You were telling us, I think it was offline, you were telling us a story about your co-writer for one of the books, Max.
Max Garwood.
What's the last name again?
Garwood. Max
Garwood.
Garwood.
I was going to say Greenwood. I was almost there.
It's close.
And tell us that story. Tell us about Max, and tell us about kind of that process in writing the book with Max, because there were a couple of interesting things that came out of there as far as his suggestions and things like that.
It was fun. And just to continue on what you were saying, I teach a lot at writers conferences. And so I'll say to people, so who's been skydiving, who's jumped out of a plane, who's gone surfing, and there's I was at this one conference and nobody raised their hand. And I went through all the stuff, and finally I'm like, what do you have to write about? You have to have done those things and to know what they're like. And to know, one of my daughters is she's a paramedic since she was 16, oversees 5 counties of emergency services. So when I need medical stuff, I call her. I'm like, how can I make this guy be dead and have nobody know for a long time, or whatever it is that I need to know?
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she'll walk me through it. And then I will work on people's books with them. People come and they have me coach them. And one gal did this earlier, and she had these paramedics show up, and I'm looking at the scene that she wrote. And like you said, she has not experienced it. And so it was not researched, and it was awful. So I told her, I'm like, here's my daughter's number. Just tell her you're one of my author friends, because I send everybody to her to get research so that they know what they're doing. So kind of as, that's a lot of what happened with how I got started writing the patent with Max Garwood. Max and his wife Barb are my best friends. When I moved here to Indiana in 1995, I met Barb first. We were both homeschooling. She, when we do parent things, she'd always say, "Hey, you want to come sit with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks," because the kid's dad always traveled. So I was like the only person there that didn't have an extra person except Barb. And so Barb would say, "Here, come sit with me." And so after a while, she would talk about Max, Max. And I was like, mythical Max, because I've never seen him and I've lived here for like 18 months. So, mythical Max, are you okay? Do we need to get you checked out? And she said, no. He's going down. He's traveling each night after work because he's getting his patent attorney license on top of the other attorney licenses that he has, and his engineering degree and all the stuff that Max does. So sure enough, 18 months later, I met Max, and he's for real. And just dear friends, super, super friends. And he's so smart. He is Spock from the Enterprise, like Captain Kirk's sidekick. That's Max. He's so, yes. Lives on the professor.
I love it. You mentioned this before. I have no knowledge of. I think some people call my dad Spock. Like that's about what we got.
That's illogical, Captain.
Okay.
You need to watch Star Trek, the old version, the very first one. And this thing that Spock did, it's a Jewish thing. It goes back in Jewish tradition. Yeah.
No.
So
I had
that's
no
a
idea.
little piece of trivia that you learn.
No idea.
As long as you write books, you learn stuff like this. So Max calls me and he says, I've got this idea. Both of our boys had grown up together, and his son was in a MASH unit out in the Middle East somewhere, and my son was in Spec Ops, so we didn't know where he was. And so Max calls me. He's like, been thinking about the guys, and I've got this idea for a story, something I think they would like to read. And so he tells me this plot, and it's brilliant. I mean, like, so over the top, so much better than anything I could think of. And I'm like, Max, that's brilliant. So how about if you scratch it out, because you're a patent attorney, you write stuff up all the time, give it to me messy, I'll turn it into a book. And Max said, I'm an engineer. Here are the 10 bullet points. You write the book. So I'm like, okay. So I dug in, started writing chapters. I'd send it over to him. Sometimes he'd call, say, come over. He printed it out. He had red marked everything. And we'd drink Earl Grey tea, him and Barb, his wife, and Max, and we'd go through the book. And then partway through the book, had gotten this really the bad guy and how he had interacted with our good guy. And Max said, well, why wouldn't the bad guy do this? And I was like, he would. I wouldn't have thought of it. So Max has been so helpful because he's such a smarter person than I am to bring up the level of the book all the way along. Also, he knows stuff I don't know. And so he'll be able to bring in, well, they do this, and there's this technology, and there's this, that, and he gave me the other week, there is a magazine for like the engineers of the world, the electrical engineers. It's called the IEEE or something. Anyway, it's got a whole big long line of it.
Sounds riveting.
Yes. So Max gives me the magazine. And so it had something on the topic for the book that we're currently writing now called the Cohen Code. But I'm looking at this magazine. I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, this stuff is like way over my head. It's fascinating, the stuff that he knows. And so, yeah, when I get stuck in a place, Max knows, well, we can go this, we can go here. And sometimes I'll come to him and I'm like, I'm stuck. I'm here. I don't know where to go next. And he'll know something. And because he's in patents, everything in our books has got something that's a little bit futuristic. And so then it works for the people that like something that's a little bit science fiction-y. So it's action, it's adventure, a little bit of future stuff all in one.
And a little bit of romance.
Just a touch
Which was all your
romance.
idea, right?
I wish it was. You'd think the female of the writing duo, but no, we were 2/3 of the way through. And Max says, so is there going to be any romance in here? I'm like, well, that's a good idea too, Max. So yeah, I think I'll write some in right now.
Mr. Spock wants some romance.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense.
It was
all the cool
hilarious.
action guys have a little, at least a little bit,
They got to, even the non-cool ones, because you said, I mean, the protagonists of the patent, because the protagonists of this book series are an FBI agent and her patent lawyer brother, right? Mm-hmm. And you said the patent lawyer brother is kind of stereotypically maybe a little on the nerdy side, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, a friend of mine.
Everybody deserves love.
Right. A friend of mine was reading the patent, and he calls me. He'd been on a plane and he read it while he was on a business trip. And he gets off the plane and he goes, I'm like right at the end. And he goes, I want to know, does Mark wind up with this girl or with that girl? And I'm like, hey, read to the end. I'm not telling you. So even the nerdy guys get really nice girls.
Yeah, both at the same time.
Yeah. And now with Mallory, the older sister, she's out in the FBI and she's like learning Krav Maga from the Krav Maga guys. And so, yeah, she gets to meet a few people too.
All right.
That makes sense, actually.
I know about Krav Maga. I don't know any of it myself.
I did.
I have a friend. I have a good friend on the local police force who trains in Krav Maga.
Yes.
I've never taken Krav Maga. I've never taken a course from him, but I probably should. But I'd probably break my old back, so maybe not.
I did a whole day of it to learn how, and then a bunch of it is in Cohen Code right now. But it's another thing. I have to do it to know how to write it and how to work it out. So we do that. Yeah.
Yep. It seems like the best way. I keep thinking about this because I love to write too, but I get so lonely, deathly lonely when I write for too long, like by myself, just clacking away. It sounds like you've sort of circumvented that by having collaborators and people who are knowledgeable in things and someone to go
and
have
7
tea
kids.
With. And 7 kids, yeah. There's no loneliness there. Going out and learning the thing, you pretty much aren't going to do that alone. Is that the best way to battle the loneliness of a writer, or is there still like those times where you're just kind of like in dead space, essentially blank canvas and you in the book?
I think it's both, and I do a lot of both. But yeah, I'm really happy to take my laptop and sit anywhere, no matter what's going on around me, and I can focus and I can write. everybody can do that. A lot of people can't. I mean, you talk about Jerry Jenkins and a few others, and they talk about going, and Stephen King, they go off to their quiet little cave, and it's like, if I waited for that to happen, I would never get any writing done. So I don't think everybody's able to do that, but I certainly am. But also, you'll notice sometimes you go to your Starbucks, or sometimes at the restaurant, you'll see, and somebody's eating by themselves, drinking coffee by themselves. They got their laptop up. That's what they're doing, and they don't want to be alone. They want to have other people around them. So it's kind of a mix of both. And then collaborating is awesome. I think 50% of my books have been written with somebody else. I was telling you earlier, I've got 45 books out with my name on them, but then there's 60 of them that I've written with other people or for other people. So it wasn't just me sitting here by myself, but there was, interaction with other people working on a project together. And some of those went really well, and some of them went not so well. And
you can't bet 1,000.
Yeah. All learning experience.
You learn, you learn what you're going to say in your contract and what you're going to be willing to do and not do, which is probably what you guys do with your voice acting as well.
Yeah, there's a ton of people out there, plenty of people who could become clients or just collaborators down the line, but sussing that out isn't always, like, I got lucky with Mike. He has follow through. And we have the gift of gab between each other, and we give each other shit enough and not get annoyed. There's so many good things, but it's definitely you hit that hiccup, and then luckily we're not writing a book together. We could stop this at any time.
Yeah. One of these days we're going to get on each other's nerves to the point where we'll be like, all right, we're done doing this.
We're done being married.
No, we love each other.
I can't imagine being halfway through a book and going, I don't know.
It's not working out.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is I'm doing the only one that's doing this job. And so at that point...
so it's the old group project thing where you're the A student and everyone else is riding on you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. And so I had to look at that a couple times and go, okay, what am I going to do with this? Well, you know what? There's a contract out there, and the contract has my name on it. And this thing needs to get ready to go to, it's got a deadline, but it's got to go to the publisher. So I have learned, I just buckle down and I do it because my name is attached to it. And if I write all of it, I know the quality of the writing that's going to be there. So, and you learn that stuff. And some people are just that way. They start off, they've got all the good intentions in the world, but they've got a brain that takes off in another direction, or something comes up, personally or whatever, and off it goes. So, you learn to.
Yep. Been there many times myself.
The brain just goes sometimes. I don't know what you guys want.
It just goes, yes.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you reconcile that, A, and B, where do you get the confidence? Did that writing confidence, you just said the writing's good. I know people say I'm a good voice actor, but sometimes I forget. Did that come from just the years and years of writing articles and things like that, just to have that confidence?
I would bet you lunch out that you got really good way before I got really good. But for me, it's been a couple of things. One is I write all the time, all the time. I put out 8 books in a year. My year that I put out the most was 8 books, full-size books in 1 year, and then articles on the side. And then I went to the physical therapist because my thumbs, I called it my trigger finger, the space bar.
Yeah.
I wrecked my thumbs. So I got to know the physical therapist. But yes, I write all the time. The other thing that's so important that I work really hard to do, because I co-author and because I also help people independently publish, is I'm staying really up to date on what's going on in the industry, because in our industry, in the publishing industry, we have trends that change, just like our hairstyles and our clothing. So remember back in the day, you'd see something in parentheses. We don't do parentheses anymore unless you're doing an algebra problem, because we don't speak in them, so we don't write in them anymore. Remember, we do the dashes and there were the dots and exclamation points.
It's my favorite way to write.
Right?
Yeah. Every email I write has an elliptical or an ellipses in it.
Same.
We don't do any of that in publishing. You can write it in there, but in the editing process, it's all coming out. And here's why. We notice that when somebody starts reading the page, they get into the story. And so they're just into it until, there's that dash, or there's that ellipsis, or there's that parenthesis. And it literally pulls them out of the story that you've been in your brain And now you're looking at a page and you're like, I need to like go set that down and go get a bologna sandwich or something.
That's
So
interesting.
to
Okay.
keep the reader in, we make it so easy for them to not have to leave. We remove anything that tempts them to leave the book.
So, on that note, we should probably just be reading on scrolls. Because turning a page, it's so loud and crispy, and you got to sometimes lick your little finger, or like, and you got to do it quiet if your wife's asleep, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we...
And then,
do
God
we-
forbid, you're reading a Brandon Sanderson tree,
Yeah.
and you
Ka-plunk.
flip the page, and it's so thick it accidentally goes,
Fluff, fluff,
and
fluff.
then you lost your place, and yeah.
So I think we've now invented the scroll. I'm going to call it the scroll. And it's going to be one book on one page that you roll up.
They've done that before.
I know.
I
I,
don't
think
think
it
so.
worked for a while.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
long
think
time ago.
anyone's ever done that. So we're going
Long
to
It's
do it.
time
hard to
ago.
carry in your back pocket, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Nowadays, it's Kindles, and you're just.
Yeah. Go through it. Digital books.
right.
I'm
Yep.
tactile though. I like the big books.
People kind of go both ways. Some people really want to hold that book. Some people are better on the auditory, and some people
I'm
love
ready.
the digital.
I will be honest. I'm ready to move to the Kindle. Because it's easier to
weighs
hold
2
than the
ounces.
giant book, and B, just because I can read in the dark if I want to.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Hey, one of the things we wanted to have you talk about, or one of the things that you wanted to talk about, and we went, that sounds super interesting, and we can't wait to hear it. Is you have kind of as you teach people, and as you have learned so much in being a creative, you have this thing called the 5 R's,
Yeah.
and we think that will benefit anybody creative, including voiceover actors that might be listening to this. So why don't you tell us about the 5 R's and kind of walk us through that?
Love to. There's a lot of areas where voice acting and writers, we complement one another. I mean, you guys bring voice, you bring life to the things that we put down on the page. And one of the other things that we have in common is that when you finish your project, you get let go because you finish it, it's done. When I finish a book, I'm done. Now I have to go find another job, another book that somebody will take from me. And so we're always auditioning. We're always putting out ideas. We're always putting ourselves out there. We're always wanting to be picked up. Please like me. Please, please want me. And there's a lot of rejection in there. And rejection is going to do one of two things. Mostly, if we're not careful with it, it's going to tank our career. And I totally let that happen to me earlier. But I also found that a lot of times we start with what's happening at home and we take it into our work. And so a lot of the 5 R's start in home with our close relationships. And this was happening in my family. So what I noticed was that as my kids grew up and they have all got their own mortgages, they've all got married, got their own mortgages, they're all on their own. They come home for Thanksgiving, they come home for Christmas. And I'm so grateful because they don't have to, but they choose to. And we would get together and we would emotionally abuse one another and have pie. And I was like,
Some of that sounds okay.
and
That's
I
like
know
the
we're not-
perfect definition of Thanksgiving.
Yes. I thought I was the only family like that until my daughter works at a very large company and she goes, oh, you ought to hear people around the office going, how are we going to get away from Thanksgiving with the
my
relatives coming
gosh.
in? And I'm like, okay, good. It's not us. So here's the thing. Let me give you the best example I can of how the 5 R's work. So one Saturday morning, my teenage daughter, Hannah, is grousing around the house. So it's just her and I at home. So I do the mom thing and I try to cheer her up. So I made her favorite pancakes and some tea and I told a few jokes. And she did not laugh at my jokes. And she let the tea get cold. And we're sitting at the table together and she's just pushing this pancake around on her plate. And she's not responding and she's not cheering up. So I'm like, all my efforts that I put out to her, and she's not changing. She's not getting the response that I want. So on that moment, I feel rejected. So that's the first R in the parade. I feel rejected. So what do you do with rejection? Well, rejection is not fun. So I moved into resentment. I'm resenting the fact that I'm feeling rejected by her. So then I make up the story in my head. In resentment, I think, gosh, she would rather be anywhere else on Saturday morning than home with me because I suck as a mom. So that's what I'm thinking. So then from resentment, then I moved into resistance. So if you've ever gotten or given the silent treatment, that's resistance. So we're sitting here at the table and I'm like, okay, fine. You're not going to talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you. You're not going to look at me. I'm not going to look at you. Like that reeks of maturity, right? And, here I am with my child acting like this.
And this
And
has all
then-
happened in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long. So then as I'm about to step into the next R, which is revenge. And revenge is my heart feels hurt and I want you to know how my heart feels. So I'm going to do something so that your heart hurts too. And then you'll know how I feel. Now, when you say it out loud, it sounds absolutely ridiculous. However, if you watch what we do this all the time. So I was about to jump into revenge and I would have said to her, hey, are you keeping those grades above sea level? You know, we got to work for that college scholarship. Hey, have you cleaned your bathroom lately? Have you looked at your bedroom? When are you going to, clean that up? Those would have been those stilettos just aimed at her heart. And then after that, we would have gone into repeat. Because if I'm the mom and I do that to you, you're sitting there eating that pancake and mom starts raging at you. What is your response?
What's my response?
Yeah.
I would probably freak out, or I would leave, depending on the, but probably freak out and start bickering.
Yeah, and depending on your relationship with your parents, you're either giving it back or you're retreating and backing away, and then there's absolutely no communication. So yeah.
Exactly. So I know what she would do. She's going to retreat. She's going to be thinking, mom's on the warpath. I don't know what her problem is, but give her space. And she would have backed up. As she was backing up, then how do I feel? Where instead of us coming together, she's now pulling further away.
I
go back into rejection again. And so then we are into what we call the last R, which is repeat. So it starts with rejection, then it goes to resentment, then to resistance, then to revenge, then to repeat. And so that's why you can get these family, relationships where you almost expect that Aunt so-and-so is going to not like somebody every year, and somebody else is going to whine if they don't get their way, and somebody else is going to play favorites. And so you just have this thing that happens. And so then we take that into the workplace and it starts happening there too. And then we sabotage ourselves and others. So I had been asking the Lord about this because I didn't like what was happening with my family. I grew up in a family like that and I didn't want to continue it. And I'm like, gosh, Lord, what am I missing here? And so I get this little tap on the shoulder and he's like, there's one common denominator in all of your relationships. It's you.
You.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't fix other people, but you sure can fix you.
But you know what? It was so much easier. That part about as far as possible, live at peace with everybody. And I was like, I'm doing my part. It is clearly them. Lord, you need to get on their case. And yeah, because you know what? It is so much easier for me to demand that of somebody else. Here, you change, you come to the table, you fix yourself rather than look in the mirror. And
But
I had somebody
take the log out of your own eye before you take the speck out of your brother's eye.
That's the one. And I had somebody ask me, what is it like to live with you? And it was like, oh, that was such a hard question. Because I'm so busy judging everybody on the outside that when I had to turn that mirror on me, there's a movie called The Heat, and one of our favorite lines in it is he's complaining about somebody, and the other person goes, do you even own a mirror? Because clearly you're the one that's, worse than what you're complaining about. Do you even own a mirror? So my daughters now and I will say that once in a while. We're like, do you own a mirror? Because look here, he's, saying something. So at that moment that I was about to say something to my daughter that would have hurt her, instead I was like, oh, I'm in the 5 R's. I was doing this. It wasn't her, it was me. And so I was like, okay. So I said, Hannah, I need to get clear with you. The thing that's in my story I'm making up in my head right now is that I suck as a mom and you'd rather be anywhere else on Saturday morning than here with me. And she kind of looked up from the pancake she's been, stirring around on her plate, and she blinks like she's coming back to reality. And she says, I just found out that the boy I babysit has leukemia.
Oh.
Right? It had nothing to do with me.
No amount of pancakes could help that situation.
And we do that. We internalize when someone, it's why if you're married a lot of, at least once a day, well, not at least once a day, but a lot, you're like, is everything okay? Because you just get that sense that that person is mad at you for something, and you're just sitting there thinking, what did I do?
Or you're oblivious and the other person is doing that to you.
But a lot of sometimes it is something I do. I mean, let's be honest. I'm a man and I do stupid things.
But
there are also times where it's just, my wife or my child or whoever is doing just that. They're just internalizing some feelings about something that has happened or that they're thinking about that has nothing to do with you. But yeah, so much we're selfish beings, and so everything that everyone is thinking or saying, or if there's two people talking across the room and they happen to glance your way, they're automatically talking about you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of us that have those insecurities. And so even as parents, I know I've been in those same situations you were just talking about, where I would make things worse because my child would be acting like a teenager, and I would get to that point where it's ticking me off, and so I'd give them back, and then it just didn't go well. When if I'd have just, but there are also those times that I did exactly what you did, where there was a caring parent, and what's wrong, and if there's anything you want to talk about, and even if there wasn't, there was at least that acknowledgement of, yeah, there's something wrong, Dad, but I need to deal with it, and I'd give them their space, and everything was much better than me going.
Right.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I mean, when you look at what we're trying to do with our life, we're all doing our best to do what we can, to do the best life that we can. So, people do what they do for their own reasons. It rarely has anything to do with us, but I always would make it about me. And so what I learned from that was that you get in the 5 hours. What I learned was the very first step. So when I'm finding myself in the 5 hours is to go back and say, what are the facts? Because if I go back to the facts, that cuts that rejection part out. And so then the whole parade doesn't continue. But the facts were that morning, I had a teenage daughter who was grousing around the house. Hello? How normal is that? And if I would have said nothing, if I just would have let it be, eventually she would have told me what was going on. She just wasn't ready. And so we always go back to, what are the facts? Go back to the facts, because you feel yourself starting to get in those other things. And in the resentment, when we make up that negative story in our head, it always frames us in a negative way, but then that story becomes my reality. And in that, I react to you based on this story I made up in my head. And I'm treating you as if what's in my head is truth. And so that's when these relationships just get into a big mess. So I learned a couple of things to do with that. First thing was to go back and check the facts. So for rejection, facts, and I wrote these down, facts will free you from false feelings. And then
alliteration.
You love alliteration.
Right?
You're
Yes.
a big alliteration.
It's a good one. And then resentment, the cure for that is, when I realize I'm in resentment, is I need to be grateful. And so gratitude is going to redeem what resentment steals. Let me get my glasses for this. Okay, so yeah, gratitude heals what resentment steals. Then the next one that we go into is resistance, and that's what they're giving them the silent treatment. So instead you engage, where most pull back, the best lean in. And then revenge is the prescription for that is being generous, so give grace, not grief. And then the last one, repeat. Repeat happens because I am expecting that when you show up at Thanksgiving that you're going to act a certain way. You're going to do certain things. I have these expectations, and an expectation is an offense in the making. It's going to happen. So I have to let people off that expectation. Just like I don't want anybody to expect anything from me, because I'm going to let you down. So then I took that into the workplace, and my first two publishers, the first one, they took my first two books. I told you the one book got sent up to when 9/11 happened. Then I sent them two more proposals, and they said, no, thank you. And so after the second one, I was like, gosh, they don't want to work with me anymore, because they didn't want my next two, nor did they say, but if you write about this, we'll take a look at that. What they did say was, they said, we don't want those two ideas, but I bet AMG does. So I went to AMG and I said, Bethany said you might like this. And they said, yeah, we do. And they signed me on those two books. So I wrote my next two books. And then those books didn't sell really well. And so I'm watching the numbers, and they're not great. And this is back in the day when authors didn't do the marketing. It was the publisher that did. Mm-hmm. And so I look at that and I'm like, oh, I suck as a writer, right? I suck because the books aren't selling well. So in my mind, I made up this story that Bethany doesn't want to work with me because they didn't take my next two ideas. And then AMG's not going to want to work with me anymore because my numbers aren't good for their company. So I've got this story in my head. And so I didn't submit anything to either one of them anymore. Like, I tanked my career by going into the 5 Rs. I was at a conference a little while later, where all the publishers each year reel out all the books that they're going to release that year. And so I went up to Bethany because, of course, my book's there. And I'm like, hey, how are you? And they're like, Peggy Sue, you're one of our authors. How come we haven't heard from you in a while? I had made up a story that had nothing to do with reality.
Because the phone works both ways, lady.
I know, right?
Dude.
And that was the story in my head, how I was expecting them, how they needed to. And you know what? That's not how the industry works. But I expected that. And then AMG, I went by their booth, and they said, oh, we owe you such a big apology because we don't have a marketing department right now, so your books haven't gotten out there like they should. That's on us. We're real sorry. So send us more stuff. So, I was blowing it by making up a story in my head. So now the girls and I, it's nice if somebody else understands the 5 R's so they can work on it with you, because I'll get into the 5 R's without realizing it. And so now, like, if you want to have drama, have a wedding. So we've done 7 weddings, and whew. So with the last one of the sisters was doing the bridal shower. And so she says to me, Mom, I'm putting out the place settings where everybody's going to sit. Is your friend coming? And I'm like, I don't know. I sent her an invitation. I called her twice. I haven't heard from her. I don't know if she's coming. Do you hear that in my voice? I mean, you can hear 5 R's in my voice. So my daughter says to me, so Mom, what's the facts? And I was like,
oh,
Gotcha.
She threw your own stuff at you.
Yes.
Oh, man. Nice
And
job.
It was perfect because I said, oh, the facts. Well, the facts are I invited her. I called her twice. I haven't heard back. You know what? I'll call her again. It took all the 5 R's right out of it. So if you have somebody who understands the 5 R's, and when you're feeling that emotion go up, and they can say to you, so, hey, what are the facts on that? And then you're like, oh, yeah. And you reel it all back in. And people tell me when I write books, they're like, oh, I could never write books. I could never write fiction stories like you. And I'm like, you're making up good fiction stories in your head every single day.
Yeah.
We're all great fiction writers.
Absolutely.
So that's the
Yeah.
5 R's.
That's
I mean,
pretty
I'm
much
listening to
every
you.
like seduction story movie that I see. That I feel like
Every
those are
sitcom
all just
plot.
like
yeah.
just people like going through the worst scenarios in their head and
Yeah.
then putting them in a book
Yes. Yep.
or a
Well,
movie.
and I'm listening to you talk about, these 5 R's, and I'm putting that in perspective as to what we do. And for you as an author, those 5 R's take a little bit of gestation time, right? For us as voice actors, we're in the booth, we're cutting an audition, we're sending it out, and then we're going through those 5 R's like on a daily basis.
Yeah, we know that we didn't get
we
hired
suck,
because the
we're no
job was in
good.
a week.
Nobody's getting back to me because they obviously don't like me, and on all of these things. And so we constantly have to be reminded. We had a guest on a few weeks ago, Paul Cartwright, who is a voice actor. He also makes indie movies. He's very much got his hands in a lot of things, and he's a great guy. And he said something about voice acting. He said, you got to remember when you submit an audition, they're listening for what they want to hear. And if they don't hire you, it's unless you're a really horrible actor, unless you're just not, it's not the audition you sent in. It's not that you didn't do quality work. It's that they're just listening for a different voice.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be the same with you in casting the audio narrator for your books. Right. You're going to be looking for listening for a specific voice, and you're going to know what you want to hear. And there may be some quality auditions that people submit.
Yeah.
It's just not the right sound.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where we as voice actors have to remember that it's not always about, sometimes you're going to do something that's going to wow the voice, the casting director, but a lot of times they're just listening for a particular pitch or tone or quality or whatever that maybe you just don't have. And then there are those times where you audition for a commercial and then you didn't get it, and then you hear the commercial and it sounds exactly like you, and you're like, what the heck? And then
Not
you go through the 5 R's.
Not generally. Obviously it's all ego based, right? Your ego was hurt, and then it got hurt again, and then it got hurt again, and then you hurt it because you thought this, and then it's a constant cycle, like you said. I've been in that tornado. I do have a question about when it becomes too much, right? There are specific people in your life that will put you in that whirlwind, not because you, for lack of trying to stay out of the 5 R's or remember the 5 R's, but for the fact that, like, these are really tough people. Is there a different R? Is there a fresh R we can add in, like removal?
Yes, there are.
Jackass. No.
Run
Yeah,
away.
the majority of people are not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to go back and do their job. Like I send something into the publisher and she's like, gosh, that just doesn't fit our catalog this year. Somebody else is writing on that. They don't reject me because they're rejecting me. It's like, no, this just doesn't fit with what we're doing right now. So there's that. However, I've also been through a very high conflict divorce. And so there are some times that there are people that want to hurt you. That's their goal. And so, yeah, it's like, how do you deal with that? Because that can really put you in the 5 R's and just keep you there. And there's always this, well, they should act like this. They should be this, biblically, that this is how they're supposed to act. Well, yeah, that's all true. But what's the reality? And the reality is these people are unkind. And the reality is sometimes people really want to hurt you. And so what I've learned to say in that is, oh, that's just them being them again. I can't change them from being that way. That is who they are. That's how they are. That's how they're going to respect or react to me. It's how they're going to treat me. It's how they're going to treat whoever else. So in that place, it's like, oh, that's just them being them again. But I don't come into the anger and the just get all bunched up about that. Instead, it's like, you have to stay out here. I can have my close friends that are safe, that are closer to me. But those people, you just have to be out here. And I just have to not be in your tight circle. Because there are people like that. There will be people that are going to be jealous of what you're doing, that want your spot, that, whatever, get offended for who knows what, and they will be unkind. So it's just them being them again. Because if I focus on that, I'll get bitter. And I was for a while. I could walk into a room and suck all the good air right out of it, just like that. It was amazing. And so I don't want to be like that. That's not pleasant. So then I had to go, okay, that's just them being them. Let them own it. And then I'm going to just remove myself from that situation.
It does sound
Yeah.
like you've taken in all of the most delicious parts of healthy thinking, gratitude, remembering that people will be people, stepping back, taking being empathetic, looking at life through other people's lens. Like there's all these. There's a book called Let Them that I'm sure you've heard about.
Yeah, Mel Robbins.
That's its own thing, and it kind of the same thing. Let them, and then let me is the second part of that book. And yeah, it's how were you just sitting there? I guess we didn't come across this in your story. Were you just kind of like by yourself one day? You're like, there's a bunch of R's here. I found the R's. How did this come about?
No, I am a slow learner when it comes to relationship situations. And so, like I said, we'd had a really bad situation that I went through, and I watched the heartbreak that it caused for me, for my children. And then in that heartbreak, because, remember when we were in school? When I was in school in my day, the kids that were the troublemakers, they were the bad kids. Well, now I realize they're not the bad kids. They're the kids with the heartbreak. They are brokenhearted. And that's why a lot of times the children of single moms wind up at the principals all the time. And then they're like, oh, those single moms are terrible moms. No, those kids have a heartache. And the only way that they know how to express it is that it comes out in their behavior. And so, yeah, it was being in the midst of that and being stuck in it and being in it deep for a long time. And finally, somebody challenged me. Can you let that go? Can you let that person be who that person is and not demand that they do what they're supposed to do, even if it says they're supposed to in the law? You can't make somebody do something. Could I then shift instead? Could I shift my trust and put it in the Lord? And it scared the crap out of me, but it was a whole lot better than wrestling all the time. And it also caused me to move from victim, because it's so easy to be a victim. I had to move from victim into personal responsibility, which really scared the crap out of me. First off, I didn't realize I was there. But when somebody pointed it out, it was like, holy smokes, yes. And then when they challenged me to take personal responsibility, it's like, oh my gosh, that means the results are mine. If I fail, that's on me. If it doesn't work right, it's on me. If, the results are on me, it really scared me because it was a whole lot easier to blame your parents, blame the school, blame the government. I mean, whatever. But when it was all, no, it's me. And stepping into that was the hardest thing that I did. And it was the best. So I had to do a lot of growing up to get through the 5 R's, to understand what those were. And when I saw it pulling my family apart, that's when I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. We've got to fix this. And I can't control the children, but I can make it so that it is a pleasant place for them to come to.
That's perfect. So now you force them to learn the 5 R's, and you're like, you're going to... I'm just kidding. That's... Yeah.
And then they throw it right back in your face.
Yes. As long as they do it
That's
nicely.
the sign that it's sinking in.
Yes. And it's been a nice accountability with my daughters, because when they do say that, well, Mom, what are the facts? It's like, oh yeah, thanks. You know, it's like, thank you. And I can do that back with them too, but it's in a gentle way. We don't pound each other. But it's like, oh yeah, thanks, because you just stopped me from doing this horrible emotional mental thing and brought me back to where I can be okay.
A lot of people find those things in sobriety as well, it seems, especially through AA. A lot of those same features come back. The accountability for one's own actions. All of that.
And not being a victim is forgiving that other person for whatever they did, and then you taking personal responsibility for your own actions. It's a doozy if you're not there. It's a doozy.
And it goes both ways, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Is there is the forgiveness, but there's also the that I forgive you for the things that you've done that I feel have been intrusive on me. But there's also the accountability of I'm not perfect either, and I know I've contributed. And that's where, there are people out there that are just narcissistic, that don't believe that they've done anything wrong. And those are the people I don't need to have anything to do with.
Yeah, because they're not safe. They're not safe people.
Oh, yeah.
So the one question you guys have not asked me is if I am a real Peggy or a real Margaret, because Peggy is a nickname for Margaret.
Right. Well, PeggySue is such a cool and hope you don't take this wrong, old-fashioned, fun, name that just you hear PeggySue, and it's to me it's like the exact opposite of Karen. You know what I mean? It's like you can't. PeggySue cannot be yelling at the manager, right?
Right.
She's
She
PeggySue.
brings them lemonade.
She brings exactly. Yeah. She brings them flowers from her garden.
Yeah. I do that. So the story behind my name, because I will walk into a room and people break into that Buddy Holly song. If you knew, PeggySue, great drum beat. Good old Buddy Holly, and I was named after that song. So, so I was totally named after that song. So here's the funny thing is, because Peggy's a nickname for Margaret.
It is?
Yes.
What are we doing in this country?
I know. Well,
Margaret is the name that has the most different
letters,
nicknames that come out of it. It's so weird.
Okay.
Well, where did we get Dick from Richard? Where did that come from?
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So, I would get asked, frequently, if it was a real Margaret, real Peggy. I'm like, no, I'm a real Peggy. So my most embarrassing moment, you want to hear that one?
Please.
Oh, please. Anyway. Yes.
Okay, so I was invited to this very upscale gathering. This were people that kind of traveled a little bit above where I currently was. And so I was very honored to go, and I went there, and I'm being very nervous. Nervous means that my mouth is moving and my brain is not engaged. It's a very dangerous situation. Yeah. So the host of the party calls me over. PeggySue, come here. So I went over, and he says, I want you to meet our dearest family friend. This is Peggy. Peggy, meet PeggySue. And I'm like, well, that's not nice. First thing out of my mouth. So, are you a real Peggy or are you a real Margaret? Because that's how Peggies get to know one another. And she says, well, I'm a real Margaret. How about you? And I said, no, I'm a real PeggySue, named after that Buddy Holly song. And they said, oh, and well, then her husband steps up. And they said, and we want to introduce you to her husband. This is her husband, Peter.
Oh, no.
And out of my mouth came this sentence that said, and are you a real Peter? And I was just like, I wish.
Or are you just a dick?
It's like, oh my gosh.
Please tell me they laughed and loved it and weren't like.
Everybody went, and I was like, oh, I will never see these people again. Interestingly, I ran into them a couple years later, and I'm like, I just remember that as my most embarrassing moment. And they said, oh, we don't remember that at all.
Oh, I was hoping they told that at dinner parties.
Now they do, and now they tell the story. That's always the problem with bringing something up to someone that may or may not remember.
Yep, happened recently to me. I'm not going to do it ever again. Yeah,
that's great. Well, PeggySue, I love the name. I love that it's Peggy Sue after the song. My daughter Annie. Is not an Anne. She's not an Anne Marie. She's Annie after the daughter in Father of the Bride.
Oh, I
So,
love that movie.
Yeah, I hate it because my wife has watched it 8,000 times.
Yes,
So after
yeah.
about time 26, I was kind of done with it. But I love that my daughter's name came from that. So,
Yeah.
but
So
She's not an
funny.
orphan.
no,
No,
Okay.
not the orphan Annie.
That's fine.
not that.
I was
Annie.
named after a gymnast, if anyone's wondering.
Really? Mitch?
Yes, Mitch Gaylord.
Yeah, I remember old Mitch
You might
Gaylord.
remember Mitch Gaylord. Fine.
But-
Okay, no one
wait,
cares.
Mike, were you named after anybody?
Please.
I was
yes.
named because I don't know
Archangel.
my dad was born on Christmas, so his actual given name, he's French, is Noel Raymond Pelletier, and he switched that up in the army and he went by Raymond Noel. Well, my mom wanted to name me Noel Raymond Jr.
Yeah.
And my dad was having nothing of it because he hated the name Noel. Because she's like, well, call him Noel. He's like, no. So Michelle was the girl's name that they had. And so when I came out, it was either going to be Michelle or Michael. So that's the story behind my name.
That's a good
Wow.
story.
Yeah. I wish you were Noel.
Sometimes, I went through a period where I was like, it would have been cool to be a Noel because every class I was in when I grew up had another Mike in it because it was such a common name. So I was always Mike P. And in elementary school, that was kind of traumatic, I will tell you. So, yeah.
And Peggy always got turned into Piggy. I mean, kids will find a way
Kids
to
will
mess
find a
with
way.
your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name doesn't rhyme with anything, so it's perfect for children.
Oh.
Right.
Keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
I could think of a few things, Mitch.
Okay.
But anyway, Peggy Sue, it's been a joy to talk to you for the last couple of hours because again, this is part 2. This is the actual podcast part, but we have a promo part that if you haven't listened to it yet and you are a voice actor, there are some very exciting opportunities and you get to hear about Peggy Sue's works, her novels that she's written, and the opportunity to maybe be the long form narration for those books, the audio book voice. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the liner notes in the social media posts and the Spotify notes and the YouTube notes. There's going to be information in there you want to know about how to get involved
pay
with Peggy
attention.
Sue and her projects. Just pay attention. Just pay attention. Would you? Yeah, we got
We're
our eyes
watching
on
you. We're literally watching you right now.
But again, Peggy Sue, just a wonderful time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And now I think it's time for them awkward goodbyes there, Mitch. What do you think?
Okay. Thank you for your hospitality, guys. It's been so fun to hang out with the M&Ms.
Yay.
Yes.
Now I need to go buy some because I don't think there's any in the house and I have a hankering for them.
Just finished mine. Huh.
All right. Chocolate.
You know what
Bye,
I
y'all.
love?
What?
I love Girl Scout cookies.
Oh,
There's so
God.
many
I haven't
good
had any of those
ones.
for a while.
Got some
Buffs.
Thin Mints going.
Oh, Thin Mints.
Daggum.
Or the Samoas.
Samoas.
Samoas. Oh, those are the best. All right. I'm getting hungry. We'll see you later.